Hello and Happy New Year. This is Tristan Hall from Hull or Nothing Productions, and I just thought I'd check in with you guys for 2019 and give you an update on where we're up to and what we're doing this year. So 2018 was mega for us. We have a whole bunch of games either underway or going to the printers or being delivered, and it's just been an epic time. So let's talk about the first of those, which is 1066 Tears to Many Mothers. So this is our second game, and it landed a couple of months ago in 2018, and it's been delivered to backers now. Hopefully all of the backers should have received their copies. Asmodee are going to be retailing it in the UK, which is fantastic, and we still have copies left, so we're still selling those, and the reviews have been absolutely brilliant. I personally am delighted because it sort of was the proof of the pudding kind of thing. It was the second game, so it was like the difficult second album syndrome thing to overcome. And after the positive reception of Gloom of Kilforth, I was really, really chuffed that people seem to have taken to 1066 Tears to Many Mothers with aplomb and good grace and enjoyment, and it's had some fantastic reviews. So thank you to everyone who's played it and who's commented or mentioned it on Twitter and Facebook. We had an excellent write-up in Tabletop Gaming magazine, which absolutely blew me away. People seem to have really responded to this sort of the history of the game, that not the history of the development of the game, but the history of 1066 that the game is obviously set in. So loads of people have been asking me what books I read to research it and where they can find out more about the time period, which is absolutely brilliant. And for anybody who's wondering, there's a little suggested further reading section on page 2 of the rules, so you should check that out. Obviously, the artwork was fantastic. We had a whole team of creatives putting together the amazing artwork for 1066, and they are continuing on into the next series of games moving forward. So that was 1066. The next development for us is that Gloom of Kilforth, the reprint, plus the 3 expansions, Encounters, Pimp My Gloom, and Dark Gloom, have all gone to the printers. They're underway at Panda now, and I believe I've been informed that they should be ready in January. So that means they're going to be shipping from China in January, which, as you all know, takes an insanely long amount of time. It's going to be probably April that they land at our distribution hubs, at which point they'll be shipping out to backers, and hopefully the turnaround time should be pretty good. We've got separate teams working on it around the world, so hopefully you should have copies of Gloom of Kilforth and expansions either in March or April this year. So I know, again, it's been a long time coming, but this is a game unlike any other. There are hundreds of pieces of art in the game, and the expansion for Encounters alone has like another 70 or 80 unique images, which are just gorgeous. So I'm really excited for that to arrive, because it's after we sold out of Gloom of Kilforth, the first reprint, the first print, everybody was asking, where can I get a copy? And so everybody was asking. People were asking me where they could get a copy, people who missed out on the campaign. So it's brilliant to be able to finally offer it to those guys who were looking for it and, who want to find out what the fuss was about, kind of thing. And also to be able to provide the expansions for the existing owners and players of the game has been amazing. And so I can't wait for those guys to get to breathe some fresh life into the base game again by adding all the extra stuff in, which brings us quite nicely to the next project. So in February, so like next month, we are launching the Kickstarter for Shadows of Kilforth. So Shadows of Kilforth is the sequel to Gloom of Kilforth. It's the same game, it uses the same mechanics, but everything in the game is like a new take on it. So there are new heroes, new races, new classes, new sagas, encounters, rewards. The whole thing plays the same as Gloom of Kilforth, but you'll just have a completely new sort of setup, layout, locations, and everything. So you can either play it completely independently of Gloom of Kilforth, if it's your first sort of venture into the world of Kilforth. It's a completely independent game, or you can combine it with Gloom of Kilforth and just like shuffle in all the extra heroes and encounters and everything, and just sort of double the stacks, the sizes of all your encounters and reward piles and everything. So really excited about that. I've been working on it for ages, pretty much since Gloom of Kilforth landed, and there are tons of new encounters and stories and narratives that are going to be driven by this game. So it also has like an Eastern feel, so it's set in the eastern frontiers of Kilforth, which means we're going to be seeing samurai, ninja, ronin, all those types of characters, and some crazy sort of monsters as well, like an oni and new and interesting stuff, you know, that really sort of breathes fresh life into the world, really. And it's given me a chance to sort of get back into the design space, because since Gloom of Kilforth in 1066, my whole career or role or job, you know, from day to day has just been logistics, accounts, managing forums and all that kind of stuff. And so actually getting my teeth back into game design has just been a real sort of fantastic opportunity for me, because that's what I'm here for. That's what I really love, and that's what I get excited about. So that's going to be brilliant. So we're kickstarting that in February, which is next month, and it's going to be for the base game of Shadows of Kilforth. We are also going to have some expansion options for people who are interested in that. So to clarify one thing, Shadows of Kilforth is the new name for Touch of Death. So Touch of Death is the name we gave this expansion way back in the Gloom of Kilforth reprint campaign, and it's caused a little bit of confusion, but decided to stick with the Shadows of Kilforth title because Kilforth has now become sort of this recognisable brand thing, and it was one of the original titles that was playing around with for the game. So it just makes it more recognisable, and it keeps all of the sort of Kilforth games together and cohesive. So for anybody who's confused about it, Touch of Death is Shadows of Kilforth. It's the same game. And so all of the guys who pledged for Touch of Death, you're the ones who've made this happen. We've almost completed all of the artwork for it, which is absolutely fantastic, because it took us years to put together Gloom of Kilforth, whereas with Shadows of Kilforth, we're hopefully going to be able to roll it out a lot quicker, because most of the assets are complete. You know, the only thing that really needs doing is on me. It's all, you know, the design and the flavor text and everything else. So, and that's really far along as well, which is fantastic. So Shadows of Kilforth in February 2019, and then in that campaign, depending on stocks afterwards in the Pledge Manager, we might be able to offer Gloom of Kilforth and the Gloom of Kilforth expansions if we have some left. But if you want Gloom of Kilforth and the expansions, the best time to pledge for it is now. Just jump straight into backer kit, and you can grab your copy and, you know, make sure you don't miss out, kind of thing. Next up, we have Lifeform, which is currently going to the printers now. We've sent, in fact, we've got the digital proofs back from the printers, so we're just waiting for Mark's approval that everything's cool with all of the final files and that. So we'll be submitting that to the printers this month, and that means it's going to take a little bit longer than we originally anticipated, because it's going to take a couple of months to get it printed, but it'll still be shipped out hopefully in the first quarter of this year from China. So then it'll be a little bit longer to get to the backers. And we're dead excited about the development of that. Obviously, there's Lifeform plus the two expansions, 13th Passenger and Dragon's Domain, the solo expansion. So it took a little bit longer than expected to finish off all of the extra stuff for that, because Mark was adding more and more content as we went along, and it was all cool stuff that we didn't want to leave out. So we've done everything we can to sort of crowbar as much cool and new and interesting stuff into the expansions for that as possible. So that's really exciting. That's going to be landing, as I say, in hopefully March, April this year. And on to the next one. In a few months after that, we'll be launching the Kickstarter for 1565 St. Elmo's Pay. So 1565 is the sequel of sorts to 1066 Tears to Many Mothers, but it's, again, an entirely independent game, standalone box, which contains everything that you need, and it will be the Siege of Malta, the greatest siege in history. So I'm really looking forward to that as well, because we've got new artists working on the material for that. Some of the artists from 1066 are back for that as well, and the stuff that we've been previewing on Facebook and Twitter, and you know, the art pieces are just gorgeous, and it's absolutely yeah, it's like a dream come true being able to work with guys of this sort of talent level that make the games that you design, that I design, look just amazing. You know, it's whatever you have in your head, they visualize and they make it 10 times better. So the same applies to 1565, and it's also an amazing story. It's an amazing battle, which I basically knew a little bit about, you know, over the years, but never really sort of dug deep into until summer of last year in England. We had a summer which was amazing. So from even like April, May time, I was in the back garden with my head buried in books about the Siege of Malta with a highlighter pen, going through all of the cool things and a, you know, big notebook, writing down all the names of the characters, the stories, the events, the tactics, the units that they used, all of the stuff that feeds into the game design in the same way that I did for 1066. So it's giving me a chance, and you as players a chance to sort of play the same game mechanics, but with all new content again. So kind of like what Shadows of Kilforth is to Gloom of Kilforth, 1565 is to 1066. So it can be played completely standalone, and should be played standalone in the first instance. And it will allow you to play as either the Knights of St. John, the beleaguered 500 or so Knights of St. John that were defending the island of Malta in 1565, when Suleiman the Magnificent raised an armada, the likes of which the world had never seen, and sent over tens of thousands, like the historians vary on the figures as they always do, but, you know, we could objectively say probably about 30,000 soldiers and janissaries over to Malta to wipe the Knights of St. John off the face of the earth forever. And as you can imagine, it wouldn't have been the greatest siege in history if the Knights didn't put up a fight. So the Knights of St. John, led by Grandmaster Jean de la Valletta, huddled together with the citizens of Malta, because the men, women and children of Malta played a huge role in the battle as well. And they had to retreat into the fortresses of Burgu, Senglia, and the doomed fortress of St. Elmo's on top of Mount Sybaris, where the legions of Ottoman Turks invaded Malta and laid siege to them, and it was the most devastating, bloodthirsty battle in history, or one of the, you know, the most terrifying battles, brutal as well. So Mustafa Pasha, who led the charge against the Knights of St. John, spent weeks, months laying siege to them and pounding the battlements of the fortresses with 90-pound cannonballs from these giant basilisk cannons, and they just leveled the fortress. They started with St. Elmo's on top of the hill to try and get the higher ground, and they obliterated it and sent these almost suicidal Turkish janissaries over the ramparts to, you know, finish the Knights off. But every time they tried to do this, the Knights, out of nowhere and against all like possibilities, jumped up and repelled the Turks. And so it became this grueling war of attrition, and eventually, after months of besieging the Knights of St. John, the Turks finally managed to take St. Elmo's and laid ruin to it, and did horrible things to the bodies of the Knights of St. John, and sent them down to the bay, the bodies, to the other fortresses, to Burgu and Senglia. So when these bodies washed up on the shore, mutilated, and horrible things happened to them, the knights in the other castles were supposed to capitulate and say, okay, well, that's it. You know, the Mustafa Pasha was waging a war of psychological terror, basically saying, you know, if you don't give up and give us Senglia and Burgu and the island of Malta, you're all going to suffer the same fate. But the problem was, all of these bodies that washed up were the brothers and husbands and fathers and the menfolk, basically, of all the people down in the bay. So instead of capitulating, they instead decided to fight with what they called the spirit of St. Elmo's. So by the time the sort of battered and bruised forces of the Turks came down from the mountain to lay siege to the other promontories, to Burgu and Senglia, they thought they were just going to walk over the Knights and the Maltese people. And in fact, they met with even more fierce resistance, and they were thrown from the walls. And after the first initial wave, I mean, there's so many stories I could talk about this for hours, and I'll try not to. But The knights and the Maltese repelled the first wave of Janissaries and chased after them and stabbed them in the back and slit their throats and wreaked havoc and revenge upon the Turks and chanted St. Elmo's Pay, and that's where we get the title for the game. It was revenge for this horrific ordeal that had been suffered at the fort of St. Elmo's. So players get the opportunity to take on either the role of Mustafa Pasha or Grandmaster Jean de la Valletta of the Knights of St. John, and they go head to head in exactly the same way that William and Harold do in 1066. And they also have to overcome the same sort of or similar objectives to get to the battle in the first place. And the mechanics of the game dovetail beautifully with 1066, because whereas 1066 was fought over 3 wedges of troops, the Siege of Malta was fought over St. Elmo's, Burgu and Senglia, these separate fortresses. So the fundamental mechanics are the same, but we get to play with how the cards' abilities work. So, for example, to represent the overwhelming numbers of Turks attacking the Knights of St. John, the Ottoman Turk player can actually, certain cards can be played from his discard pile. So he can bring, you've just defeated a Janissary sniper, he can bring it straight back into play from the discard pile. So it sort of represents this overwhelming tide of, troops coming at you. But of course, the Knights of St. John have tricks up their sleeves as well to overcome these overwhelming forces, just as they did in the actual battle. So really excited for that. The artwork, as I said, is already shaping up beautifully. The game mechanics are almost there, and we'll be kickstarting that in a few months' time, so probably summer this year. We have a number of other projects on the go. I've got one very small game which I really want to get out there called Veilwraith, which is a one-player game at the moment, and it's just a very quick card game that gives you an experience of the world of Kilforth after the gloom has already taken over and the heroes have lost. So it's in the timeline, in the history of the world of Kilforth, it's set after the disaster of the gloom landing, but in this particular narrative, as in the original narrative that I wrote many years ago, the heroes lose, the gloom wins, and the demons are rife amongst the world. And so you take on the role of a Veilwraith, which is a mysterious being that's been sent back into this mess of a world to try and right some wrongs. And I think it's got some cool mechanics, plays really quickly. You can play in like 20 to 30 minutes, and it has a series of scenarios, and each time you beat one, you sort of move on to the next one and improve your character as you go. So excited to try and get that out, but it's whether or not we can fit it into everything else. So we've got Shadows of Kilforth in February, we've got St. Elmo's Pay, 1565 St. Elmo's Pay this summer, and at the end of the year we're going to be kickstarting my horror opus, which is Sublime Dark. And this is a game which is very different in a way from the other games that I've done. It's still very narrative focused, but it's kind of a campaign game. I don't want to say legacy because you don't sort of destroy any components, but as each time you play it, there's a new scenario for the heroes, for want of a better word, for the players, who find themselves in this village where lots of horrible things are happening, and some of the artwork in this game is horrific. I asked one of the main artists to try and make me feel sick, and he's done it very successfully. So it's going to be very different from Gloom of Kilforth and 1066 and 1565. So it's going to be like a hard sort of 18 rating, I think, because it's, if you didn't like the Ancients in Gloom of Kilforth, if you didn't like that artwork there, stay away from Sublime Dark, because the monsters in this are sick and fantastic. It's very much inspired by like Hellraiser and Silent Hill and sort of the body horror movies of the 80s and stuff. And so as you're playing through the scenarios, the heroes will discover new things, and new sort of creatures will emerge as the game goes on, and you'll be opening new packets of stuff as you play along. So I'm really excited about that, but we'll have more information on that towards the end of the year. And we are currently working on a bunch of other stuff. Some of it is not signed up yet, so we can't tell you about that, but it would be one of them is particularly amazing if it comes off. And so that sort of brings us up to date for now. I'll try to do more of these. I'll try and check in more often and tell you a little bit about where we're up to and what we're thinking about, what we're reading and stuff. If that's of any interest to you, please comment below if you'd like to see more, if you'd like to talk about other things or more details about specific projects, or what we're doing and that kind of thing. And be sure to join our Facebook groups. We've got Board Chitless, where we do the podcast. We're trying to do a weekly podcast, but it's kind of fallen by the wayside because my co-host Lecky has had a baby, which is fantastic. So his time's been completely tied up with that, but he'll be back on board with us, and we'll try and resume normal podcasting duties in the next few weeks. So we have Board Chitless, and you can follow us on Facebook. It's mostly just for talking about games and sharing stupid memes and stuff. We also have Facebook groups for Gloom of Kilforth and 1066, where the chat keeps going. So we're also on Board Game Geek, if you want to find out about the game there, if you don't like Facebook. And you can follow us on Twitter. So, yeah, it's been great chatting to you. Very one-sided conversation at the moment. So, like I say, do feel free to comment below, and I'm happy to chat more about anything that you want to hear about. But I'm just going to wrap it up here for now. I'm aware that I've been going on for 20 minutes, going on myself. So I hope you had a fantastic sort of Christmas and New Year. That 2019 is going to be as exciting for you as it already is for me, because I'm absolutely buzzing. So thanks for watching if you made it this far, and I'll speak to you soon.